Hello everybody, Simon Holden here from Holdens Horses. We are currently on Thursday, the 10th, before the Cheltenham Festival next week. I'm very, very lucky to be joined by Neil Morrice, the Handicap King from YouTube, the racing journalist and broadcaster. And we're going to talk have a little chat about the Champion Hurdle, the race itself, and then bring it up to this year's. It is, of course, the showpiece on day one, on Tuesday, and is a race that for punters, if you grab the winner of this, you start to feel like it's going to be your year. So we'll try and point you in the right direction and talk a little bit about our memories of the race. So Neil, thank you very much. I hope you're all excited for next week.
Oh, absolutely. Always. It's now getting toward fever pitch, just a few days to go from the start of the festival. And of course, having missed out last year because of the COVID epidemic in terms of attendance, I think there'll be more enthusiasm than ever for the 2022 renewal.
I think there's going to be some Cheltenham roar at the start and some reception for the winner of this. It might need quite a bit of security to get them back into the winner's enclosure. Now, we've just been talking before we started, and I want to talk about a horse that you remember very, very well, which goes right back to 1976, long before I was born, Neil. There, well, actually not quite, but let's go with that. And the horse was Night Nurse, trained by the great Peter Easterby. So tell us about your memories of that race.
Well, it was a wonderful race. Of course, Night Nurse won 2 champion hurdles in the mid to late 70s, as I recall. And what for me made Night Nurse's victory so important is the horses that he actually beat in that race, because this was a time when we'd lost what probably would have been the outstanding champion ever, a horse called Golden Signet, trained by Eddie O'Grady, who, when winning the Supreme Novices Hurdle, did so without coming off the bridle. It was a stunning performance. And then he was tragically killed in the Scottish Champion Hurdle, falling at the final flight when he definitely would have won. But even without Golden Signet, and that was very, very sad to lose him at such a young age. But there were many other horses at the time considered Champion Hurdle, could win any normal Champion Hurdle. And I would name horses like Bird's Nest, for example, whose pilot, Andy Turnell, very sadly passed away yesterday. Yeah. Bird's Nest went there as one of the first 2 or 3 in the betting for several years. He was up against Night Nurse, and of course, Kaibo, a horse trained by the late Josh Gifford, was a multiple winner who, when he ran in that race, actually fell when travelling quite well. I think it was at the second last. And of course, after that, you got the likes of Monksfield and Sea Pigeon, and he, of course, ran in that champion hurdle that Night Nurse won, or one of them, and finished 4th. So it really was what we call an outstanding bunch of horses. Pollardstown was another for Stan Mellor, Daring Run from Ireland. They were top-class horses, all in the same boat. And I, for that reason, do remember Night Nurse. He was a battler, but he was certainly on ratings. If you look now at the highest rated of all these champion hurdlers through that golden age and through the rest of time until now, it's Night Nurse who's got the highest rating on time form.
It is. And for people watching this who weren't around at that time, Night Nurse, Monksfield, Sea Pigeon, they all had, in the build-up to each Cheltenham, their own like camp, their own, a little bit like a Kauto Star v Denman. They had their own fan clubs. They were huge. This was when racing was on the front page and the back page. We look at 76, 77 Night Nurse, 78, 79 Monksfield, 80, 81 Sea Pigeon. These horses weren't hidden away, Neil, were they? They raced against each other and went at it. And it really was a golden age of champion hurdles. One that we might not see again. I mean, let's hope we do get 3 horses that come around at the same time. It makes you look at some of the other champion hurdles, and we'll come on to this year's, which we're not going to make any fairy tales. It's not a vintage renewal. It's not a Night Nurse year. My own first memory was in 1989 when a horse called Beach Road caused a huge shock for the future Grand National winning jockey Richard Guest, for the great Toby Balding. He came flying through at the end, very unheralded. Obviously, went in at 50-1. He later showed that it wasn't a fluke. But the reason I mention that is just to remind people, for any one of these Grade 1 races, if you're deemed good enough to take part, whatever price you are, one thinks of the Great Norton's Coin, be very careful in striking a line through any of these horses, because they all have ability. The race didn't so much fall into Beach Road's lap. Guesty said years later that they went way too fast on the first circuit, and in a way he was the beneficiary of that, but he went on to win other Grade 1s. So I don't know about you, but I always think, I look back at races like that and think, just be careful of striking a line through anything in a champion hurdle, Gold Cup, champion chase, whatever, because they can always come back and bite you, can't they?
Well, he was a handicapper, I remember, who kind of rose through the ranks, and he landed a couple of very valuable handicaps. But the key to Beach Road was the ground, and he needed a bog. He needed it hot, deep, and when he won it, it was a very inclement week that I recall. And the soft ground definitely helped him get his head over the line. And everyone at the time, I remember he was returned, I think he was returned 33, could have been 40. I think it's 33. Like quite a lot of people, of course, as you quite rightly allude to, thought it was, or it could have been a fluke, but he went on to prove that it wasn't a fluke. Yeah. And I have to say, at that time, Toby Balding, his trainer, really was having a renaissance. And that was at the time, of course, when he had that wonderful novice, Morley Street, coming through the ranks. And indeed, Morley Street went on to win the champion hurdle. I think it was in 90 or 91. 91. Yeah.
Under Jimmy
So,
Cross.
Exactly. So Toby, had good yardsticks to measure against, if you like, as well as his chasers. But Beach Road, look back on it, and remember that horse winning. I think he won a big handicap at Newbury, and then he went and landed the champion hurdle. But this can happen. There've been other occasions, as you know, Simon, when it's happened. Whether it'll happen this time around, well, I very much doubt it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I want to mention, because again, it was not regarded as a great year, and time form and race form boys will mark it down. But Flaky Dove was such a fantastic story, winning for Richard Price, ridden by the great Mark Dwyer, so popular in Malton, at 9-1. But I want to talk about the following year, 1995, because it shows up something that we don't really see anymore, which I think is quite sad, Neil. The horse was Alderbrook, ridden by Stormy Norman Williamson, trained by Kim Bailey. The same year, of course, he did the Gold Cup double, when he really was the king of national trainers. Alderbrook was an extremely high-quality flat horse. Now, we used to see horses maybe that were 1 mile 2 on the flat, classy types that would go hurdling. I suppose with the start of the all weather and with big pots to be won by staying on the flat, we don't really see a horse like Alderbrook anymore, do we?
No. I get your drift with what you remarked then about, these flat horses who then switched to hurdling. Yeah. And it was quite easy for some people, especially flat biased people, to think, well, that's a shoe-in. That horse is going to just mop up, as a novice, and then as a proven graded horse. And with regard to Alderbrook, the key to him, I think, was the fact that when Kim Bailey got him, he had a very, very good assistant trainer called Eddie Hales, who did a lot of the work in the background. Alderbrook was an entire horse. He had, as you say, very good form from the flat, but Kim was very parsimonious in how many times he ran him over hurdles. And I think, if I can recall, he probably only had 1 or 2 runs over hurdles before he actually won the race.
I think he won at Wincanton, didn't he? I think
he won the Kingwell.
He won
the Kingwell, and he was also, that was a year, Master Oates, of course, won the Gold Cup. from the same stable. But that was a year when, again, soft ground was a big part of it. And I think Alderbrook might have had a German pedigree, and those horses love to get their feet into the ground, and everything came right sort of on the day. Norman Williamson and Kim Bailey could hardly do a thing wrong in those days, and it all came right on the day. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'll very quickly touch on the following year, Collier Bay. Again, not a great renewal, but the great story of the wayward lad Graham Bradley being fired before the race and getting on Collier Bay in a spare and ending up winning and beating the favourite that he should have ridden. A great story. We then had Make a Stand, who showed yet again under Piper McCoy their genius in bringing horses and improving them. People said he was a handicapper who'd be outclassed, and of course he didn't. He blazed a trail and won all, and made all rather the Isterbrack years. But the next one I want to touch on is 2003. Of course, Isterbrack was a great horse, but he's been talked about many times. The reason I want to talk about 2003 is it was Rooster Booster, who the year before had won the county hurdle. Of course, the great handicap of the festival, that then was the final race on the card on the what would have been the Thursday then. Now, it was regarded as one of the easiest handicap demolition jobs that we've ever seen at Cheltenham. He came back the following year at 9-2 in the big race and won. Richard Johnson, of course, Philip Hobbs in the yellow Terry Warner colours. But I've spoken to many ratings guys, and I'm fascinated to know your view on this, who said it was a better performance the year before when he won the county hurdle under a monster weight. So, of course, he proves yet again that horses can make that bridge from handicap company and win grade ones in fairly easy style, it has to be said. So Rooster Booster, he was some horse, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a horse with a very high cruising speed. And I think when you look at these horses over the years, including, of course, Sea Pigeon, and there was no horse with a better cruising speed than him probably I've ever seen. Look at the handicaps, his handicap record, especially on the flat, but also over hurdles. And I think with Rooster Booster, the grey Rooster Booster, he just had that ability to travel, and I think those type of horses have got a better chance of carrying a big weight in a handicap than a different type. But without any question, he must have improved from winning the county, even though it was a welterweight, to winning the champion hurdle. He must have improved, and he just went through that kind of glorious 2 seasons, didn't he?
Yeah.
Was it Richard Johnson rode Rooster?
Yeah, Richard Johnson, Dickie rode him. Yeah.
And Terry Warner was the owner.
Yes, Terry Warner, the famous yellow colours. Yeah.
Everything just came gloriously right for them in that sort of wonderful period of time. And as we've said with 1 or 2 other horses previously, that can occasionally happen where a horse sort of comes out and bites you that you wouldn't expect necessarily to be a champion hurdle horse, because it's a champion hurdle horse masquerading as a handicapper. And when these horses improve and go through the ranks and go up in the ratings, anything can happen. Anything's achievable.
Yeah, it is, and it just shows you when a horse starts improving, it can be a very exciting thing to be around, can it? We'll bring things up to date. We could literally talk for hours, but we haven't got hours. I must just mention, I'll allow you to mention one in the last 4 or 5 years that has really excited you. I've got to mention Annie Power. I keep coming back to the point that they don't have to be great renewals for me. I was just so in love with the horse. I think she could have been another Dawn Run. I wish she'd had a go at the Gold Cup, because I think she could have been one of the few horses ever who had the class to win a champion hurdle and could have been competitive in a Gold Cup. I do think she was that good. And even though she's highly rated, I do think she's the most underrated Cheltenham winner of the last decade or so. So give me one from say 2016 on, Neil, that you particularly warm to.
Well, it's a bit obvious this, but I'm going to say Honeysuckle. And the reason I know we're going to talk about Honeysuckle in a minute, but Honeysuckle is totally dominant in this division now, totally dominant. And if you analyze what this mare has done, it's a spectacular winning sequence that she's set up. And I know Annie Power, in many ways, you could measure her against Honeysuckle as a similar type of individual. Of course, they're both mares, both trained in Ireland, and both of them prolific winners. But Honeysuckle has got that air of invincibility that I don't think any champion hurdler has had for a long time. And you've been around to some of the Cheltenham Festival preview nights, and we've seen it all on our telephones, all the recordings of interviews with various trainers. And the thing about Honeysuckle is I've never met a person yet who said that they're prepared to take her on in a bid to follow up last year's success. And
stick around, Neil. Stick around.
It's incredible. Yeah. Not a single sausage of a person said that they think she can be beat. And I also, and in that number, you've got the trainers of her main market rivals as well.
Yeah. Let's bring it up to speed. We've had some great memories there, and when you think back, this is one hell of a race. It really is, and you don't get bad renewals. You just get ones that are not quite as good. I always remember the story of Peter and Mick Easterby being sat outside the Wetherby weighing room, and some wag saying to them, "It's not a very good Gold Cup this year, is it, gents?" To which Peter replied, "Well, try winning it then." We can all say the crap, can't we? But you
absolutely.
got one. Yeah. So I do think it's a classic case here of you've got a decision. Are you a player or a layer in terms of betting? Now we love the race, but people do want to have a punt in it. It's on the first day. I sensed in the last week a few of the major firms wanted to get Honeysuckle. The reason I say that is, and I tend to agree with some of the people that are behind this theory, is that I think she might be ever so slightly on the decline. I say that because her win last time out didn't seem to have the sparkle or the speed or the just didn't seem to me that she was quite at her very best. Now, I'm sure de Bromhead will have put a lot of work into this mare for that Dublin Racing Festival, and I'm not sure how much is left in the tank in terms of improvement. He looked like a guy who was desperate to win that race. He didn't look like somebody who wanted that as a bonus. So there's the argument against. The argument for is people like me try and get these odds on Champions B, and sometimes you've got to stop trying it and just weigh in with them. At a best price time of recording, she's 4-7 with 3 firms. She's as low as 4-9 with some, Neil. So with our betting heads on, what do we think about this?
I think the 4-7 is right. I think what you've got to remember is that when you look at this race, she's done an awful lot right, and quite a lot of the others have done an awful lot wrong. You've got to be very, very, very what's the word? Loyal to the novice, appreciate it, to think that he can come back from this massive absence, and dethrone her, even though we all know that he was a rattling good novice. And, some of the vibes you're getting from the trainer are very good. I, however, don't detect that, when I've been amongst Irish people who I really respect, who are very good judges and, know what's going on, the time of day on the gallops and everything over there. I'm not getting the right vibes for appreciate it. And then if you take away the other Irish one at the top, Tiapu, which I've got to be honest with you, I don't know enough about the horse to think it could suddenly improve enough to down Honeysuckle. You're then looking at Epatante. Well, Nicky Henderson's pretty enthusiastic about the way she is, certainly the way that she's worked, because I know she's trained just over the hill from me, and I know she's worked very enthusiastically. They're very, very pleased about where they are with her in terms of the way that she's been working. But Nicky Henderson's horses, you know, they can't win a donkey derby at the moment, and you've got to be a loyal, faithful Epatante man to think that she can, you know, regain her crown, because even by the trainer's own admission, the champion hurdle that she won wouldn't have been one of the best. And then after that, what can you find? You know, it really is difficult. And as I say, an awful lot has gone wrong with her rivals, and nothing's really gone wrong with Honeysuckle. So I don't like going short. I never have done. You know that,
I know
Simon. That, yeah. But I simply can't oppose her. And, you know, I think it'll be good for racing if she wins it again.
Yes, I know. I suppose with my sort of assassin's head on, I did say at a preview night the other night that, of course, Quevega used to have the requisite one run a year and then be put away. I'm not saying Appreciate has been deliberately campaigned like this, but what I would say is if we go and watch the win, you know, you watch that race in the Supreme and then ask yourself, will you be in a hurry to oppose that horse at the same track and trip? My answer would, of course, be no, but of course that wasn't a champion hurdle. I think the other relevant point for everyone watching is the performance of Blue Lord in the Arkle, a horse that was royally stuffed before falling at the last from the Supreme. If that were to gag up in the Arkle, Neil, I could see some momentum getting behind Appreciate. I think the Mullins fan club will back the horse. I think Tia Poo is the horse coming here on an upward curve. There's always one horse that comes out of the pack, isn't there, in a champion hurdle that's coming out of handicaps, that flyer. I'm not sure the horse is good enough. I think Adagio is quite an interesting horse. He's got it to do massively on the ratings, but I do sense that sort of pipe confidence that he is at least going to run a big race. And I mean, you know, there are many things, but stupid's never been among them. So I do think Adagio is going to at least show up. And of course, the fact that they've not gone down the handicap route as well is interesting to me for them. Tommy's Oscar, isn't it great to have a horse from Scotland or Malton just physically at Cheltenham these days? So let's hope he runs well. But the one at a price I do like, and I could see Nicking third, is Glory and Fortune. I thought he was a very improved performer at Newbury. He lacks the class for this race. But if Honeysuckle were to win by half the track and Appreciate it, we realise the reason we haven't seen him is because he's not quite there. Then that does open up some places. I think Epatante, even the sort of Lambourne gang, must be worried, Neil, about the form of the yard. You've just touched on it. I think you've got to see at least one of these early horses like Constitution Hill do the business or run well before you can be following in some of these Henderson horses. They really are having a worrying run, aren't they? And it's not that they're being beaten, it's the manner, isn't it? The manner that they're running. Now, he may come back and have 6 winners and make us all look stupid, but I like to see evidence before I bet. So Epatante.
Well, if you asked you know, the cognoscenti of National Hunt, what's the best race at this year's Cheltenham Festival, there is no doubt what the best race is. It's the first.
Yes.
The Supreme Novices Hurdle is the best race on the whole card, without question. And what's going to be even more interesting is if one of those horses in the first 4 or 5 in the betting for that absolutely, you know, hacks up, well, that will be challenging this mare for favoritism for next year's champion hurdle. And I think that's what the best that we can hope for, is that one of those horses, Constitution Hill, or one of Willie Mullins's horses, or even John Bomb, but I personally think Constitution Hill has probably got a better chance. But if one of those really impresses, well, then you've got something to savour for next year. If assuming Honeysuckle's still around. So
so true.
I have to say, I think if you ask most, you know, professionals, what is the race you're most looking forward to at the festival? It's the first.
Yeah, it's all downhill from there after the first all week. But yeah, it's great. So Neil, you're very much in the Honeysuckle camp, and of course, people can get over to your YouTube channel, The Handicap King, where you'll be taking people through the week and giving bets live from Cheltenham, folks. So it doesn't get any better than that. So please do have a look. What I'll do is I'll put a link to your channel under this video, Neil, so people can go and check it out. Yeah, Honeysuckle, Neil just cannot see. Thinks the price is right. Very hard to argue. She is a wonder mare. I think she's slightly on the decline, but I still think she might be good enough. Appreciate it. Let's hope he is the horse we thought, and then we've got a real race. But I am having a few quid each way on Glory and Fortune to hopefully bring me some fortune, if not glory, for the day. So thank you, Neil, for sharing some memories of the race. Have a great week next week, mate, and I shall see you very soon, I hope. And let's hope at least one of us is right. Anyway, have a great week.
Let's hope so. Pleasure talking to you, Simon. Have a great week at Cheltenham.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy.